For those of you who don't know me, I'm Doug Gillespie, Clark County Sheriff, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I have some prepared comments that will update you on the incident itself, as well as suspect information. And then after the three of us have spoken, we will then answer any questions that you may have. It has now been 24 hours since my two officers and a citizen were murdered. The families of the officers are dealing with the loss of their loved ones, and our police department family is trying to cope with their deaths as well. I can't thank the Las Vegas community enough for the kind words and support over the last 24 hours. I also want to extend a thank you to our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, for I've received personal calls, text messages, and emails from law enforcement brothers and sisters across this great country. To my agency, I'm proud of your focus over the past 24 hours. From the initial response to our patrol officers' call for help at CC's Pizza, as well as your response to the Walmart, was extraordinary. You showed no fear, entering a building knowing shots were being fired and that two of your brothers had already been shot. You used your training and good sense and developed a plan that forced the two suspects into a situation where their only avenue was to take their own lives. You did not get caught up in the moment. You relied on good leadership and sound police tactics. I applaud you. Once the situation was contained and the suspects no longer a threat, our investigative personnel began their work. Two dynamic and large scenes were processed and examined with great skill and efficiency. I also want to thank other first responders to the scene: Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, Clark County Fire, AMR, Nevada Highway Patrol. To those paramedics, even though both of my officers did not make it, I know you worked hard to give them a chance. To UMC and the Trauma Center, God bless you. I watched you work so hard on my two men, but we all know the wounds were too severe. To the family of Mr. Joseph Wilcox, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department would like to send our deepest heartfelt condolences. Joseph died attempting to protect others. His death is completely senseless. I know all of you here, as well as many people far away, have many questions. I would now ask Assistant Sheriff Kevin Mayhill to come to the podium. He will speak to the investigation, the identity of the suspects, and what we have in regards to the event itself. Once he is finished, Assistant Sheriff Joe Lombardo will address where we go from here and about how our patrol officers will operate moving forward. As I stated before, once they have both completed their remarks, we will answer questions. Kevin?
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm just going to give you the names real quick, so as I begin to tell you the story, it'll be very simple for you to follow along here. I think most of you already know that the two officers involved, the first one is Officer Igor Saldo. He's 31 years of age, and he was hired with Metro in 2006. The second officer is Alan Beck. He's 41 years of age. He was hired here in Metro in 2001. The two suspects you'll see on to my left here, the first one is Jared Miller. He's 31 years of age. The second is his wife, Amanda Miller. She is 22 years of age. The citizen victim in this case, Mr. Joseph Wilcox, is 31 years of age. So chronology of the events as we move forward, at about 11:22 hours yesterday, officers Saldo and Beck were inside of the CC's Pizza. taking their lunch break. At that time, Mr. Jared Miller entered into the restaurant, looked around briefly, and immediately exited the restaurant. He then went back out and met with his wife, Amanda, and both of them re-entered the store after leaving several of the items that they had carried with them, being backpacks, outside of the store. They walked past our officers who were eating lunch in one of the booths, and immediately upon passing them, Jared Miller pulled a handgun out and shot Officer Saldo one time in the back of his head. Officer Saldo immediately succumbed to his injuries, and there was no further movement from him in the booth. At that time, Officer Beck immediately began to react when he was confronted with lethal gunfire from Jared Miller, and he was shot once in the throat area. What happened after that very quickly was that Amanda Miller then removes a handgun from her purse, and both Jared and Amanda Miller fire multiple shots into Officer Beck. This entire incident at the CC's is captured on videotape. We're still conducting forensic review of that video. Immediately upon the shooting finishing, the suspects pulled the officers out of the booth and onto the ground, where they placed a Gadsden flag, which is a "Don't Tread on Me" yellow flag, on the body of Officer Beck. They also threw a swastika on top of his body. At that point, Mr. Jared Miller then pinned a note to Officer Saldo that basically stated that this is the beginning of the revolution. They made the same types of comments inside of the restaurant, where numerous restaurant patrons heard that commentary. They then walked out of the restaurant, gathered their backpacks, and proceeded in a southbound direction. They then crossed Nellis Boulevard over to the Walmart and entered into the front door of the Walmart store. Immediately upon entering the store, Jared Miller walked in through the front doors and fired off one round and told the people to get out, and that this is a revolution and that the police were on the way. Amanda Miller was trailing behind Jared Miller, and we believe she was placing the backpacks into a shopping cart. At that time, our citizen victim, Mr. Joseph Wilcox, was located over in the area where you pay, and he observed this activity, and he told his friend he was going to come confront the suspects. He was carrying a concealed weapon, and he immediately and heroically moved towards the position of Jared Miller. Upon completing that action, he did not realize that Amanda Miller was with Jared Miller and passed her directly. As soon as he began to confront Jared Miller with his firearm, Amanda Miller removed her firearm and shot him one time in the ribs area, and where he immediately collapsed. Subsequent to that, the 911 calls continued to come in, and the officers were responding to both locations. Information was put out at the scene very quickly that when Jared and Amanda Miller were at the CC's, they took the firearms from our downed officers, as well as all of the ammunition on their belts when they left, and took that with them. As soon as they got into they continued towards the rear of the Walmart store, and our officers, led by two sergeants using the active shooter assailant protocols that we train on called MAGTAC, decided to enter into five-man elements and enter in the store. One team entered from the rear, the other team entered from the front, and almost upon entry, the team in the rear began contact with the suspects. There was an exchange of gunfire between the officers and the suspects, and the suspects continued towards the rear of the store near the automotive area. There was a number of times that the officers and the suspects both conversed as well as exchanged gunfire, and we had an officer immediately at the direction of one of the sergeants get into the surveillance area with one of the security officers from Walmart and then begin to view that tape. and provide updated intelligence to our responding officers as to the locations of the suspects. At that point, the sergeant at the scene made the determination that they had the suspects contained in the rear of the store, and that they were not going to further advance on the officers, and they were waiting for SWAT to arrive. At some point during this struggle, Jared Miller had gathered items from throughout the store, and both of the suspects had laid down and sat down on the grounds at various times and positioned themselves in a tactically advantageous position to engage any officers that were approaching. He also took some of the items around there and sort of built a defensive position around Amanda. She was seated and was suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. At one point, he laid on his stomach in front of Amanda. Amanda removed took her handgun and fired several rounds into Jared, where he then immediately passed on the floor. At that point, Amanda took her handgun and ended her own life with one gunshot wound to the head. SWAT officers responding went in, immediately secured both suspects with handcuffs. At that point, it was made a determination that Amanda was still breathing, and we took her out and transported her to the University Medical Center with the assistance of our fire professionals. That's a very brief description of what we know at this point. I would like to point out to you a couple of what we have found from the investigation as it's unfolded at this point. At this time, we believe this is an isolated act. As you all know, we're conducting hundreds of interviews. It's a very complex investigation. We're looking at social media. We're talking to associates. We're talking to neighbors. We're trying to make a determination what it is that could have been the motive, what was the motivation behind their targeting police officers and walking in with no warning and executing our officers. I can tell you that there's no doubt that the suspects have some apparent ideology that's along the lines of militia and white supremacists. You already have reporting in the media that on the Facebook of Mr. Jared Miller, he indicated that he was at the Bundy Ranch during the cattle standoff. We continue to utilize investigative resources to determine if in fact that is true. As you all know, there was a convergence of not only militia but white supremacists and sovereign citizens to the Bundy Ranch. We continue to look at any connectivity that Jared or Amanda Miller may have to that previous action. I'll tell you that there's also a lot of media speculation in regards to those connections with that ideology, and one of the things that we believe at this point with the swastika is that we don't necessarily believe that they are white supremacists or associated with the Nazi movement. We believe that they equate government and law enforcement fascism and those who support it with Nazis. In other words, they believe that law enforcement is the oppressor and they're associated with the Nazi movement. As you well know, we're working with our federal counterparts, and as the suspects have previous residence in both Washington and Indiana. We believe they've only been here since January of this year. Jared Miller has a criminal background where he is a convicted felon for vehicle theft offenses in the state of Washington, and as you well know, he said in his Facebook post that that is one of the reasons that he was kicked out of the Bundy Ranch, because of his criminal history and background. We do realize that the events in Gold Butte attracted a significant number of anti-government, anti-law enforcement individuals, and we continue to investigate the aspects of this case that may be related to that. At this time, I'm going to have Assistant Sheriff Lombardo come up and provide you some commentary as to the current posture of our organization, and then we'll be available for questions. Thank you.